about the pulpit. One of the very rare places in our society where you stand up and talk for anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. Uninterrupted. You can say just about whatever you want to say, and people will listen. Even if they disagree with you, they'll listen because they respect the pulpit and they respect the spoken word. And so I think it's really a wonderful thing that Doug has come tonight to give us God's word. Wow, brother.
What was that you said this morning?
I got to follow that.
Thank y'all very much. Wow. It has been 2 years, something like that. I'm going to read from the Message. It's a version of the Bible the very special lady turned me on to, because I have a hard time reading even with my glasses because words float around. But it's even harder when I look at thee and thou, and I'm like, what are they talking about? I don't understand it. And I love God so much that I've got to understand His Word. Miss Linda turned me on to the Message, and I understand it even more so. So I have 3 verses that I want to read. And after I read them, I'm going to tell you about what we're going to talk about tonight. The first one is Exodus 32. God said to Moses, I look at these people. What a stubborn, hard-headed people. Let me alone now. Give my anger free rein to burst into flames and incinerate them. But I'll make a great nation of you. Moses tried to calm his God down. He said, why? God, why would you lose your temper with your people? Why? You brought them out of Egypt in a tremendous demonstration of power and strength. Why let the Egyptians say he had it in for them? He brought them out so he could kill them in the mountains. Wipe them right off the face of the earth. Stop your anger. Think twice about bringing evil against your people. Think of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants to whom you gave your word, telling them, I will give you many children, as many as the stars in the sky, and I'll give this land to your children for their land forever. And God did think twice. He decided not to do the evil he had threatened against his people. Now we go to Mark. This is Mark 6:49 through 51. Late at night, the boat was far out to sea. Jesus was still by himself on the land. He could see his men struggling with the oars, the wind having coming up against them. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came towards them, walking on the sea. He intended to go right by them. But when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and screamed out of their wits. Jesus was quick to comfort them. Courage. It's me. Don't be afraid. As soon as he climbed in the boat, the winds died down. They were stunned, shaking their heads, wondering what was going on. They didn't understand what he had done at supper. None of this had yet penetrated their hearts. And then the last one that we have is James 1:19, 19 through 21. Please listen carefully. Post this at all intersections, dear friends. Lead with your ears. Follow up with your tongue. And let anger straggle along the rear. God's righteousness doesn't grow from human So throw all spoiled virtue and cancerous evil in the garbage. In simple humility, let our gardener, God, landscape you with the word, making a salvation garden of your life. Those are powerful to me. Tonight, what I want to talk about is anger. We all have it. Some have it more, some have it less. It all depends. But we all have it. I want to define anger. According to the definition that I found, one that I kind of liked, was anger is defined as a feeling of great annoyance or antagonism as a result of some real or supposed grievance, rage, or wrath. That's pretty serious stuff. And what I get in there is supposed. Real or supposed. What exactly does that mean? There's so many different connotations of real or supposed and where are we at? I don't know. But I was reading some more on this, and I read a quote from Marcus Aurelius. Anger, like grief, is a mark of weakness. Both mean being wounded and wincing. Wow. So I take what I read about anger, what somebody else has defined, they could put it into words, and I listened to what Marcus said over and over in my head. And then I thought about my anger, and I thought about what I read in Exodus. Exodus 32 was powerful in its own, that it showed that our God, the awesome God that there is, showed anger. He got angry. Why? I see that I get angry. I see that everybody has a moment in their life where they get angry. Why? The definition that I have come up with after prayer, thinking, reading, is fear. Anger is nothing more than fear. Fear of failure of one type or another. Nothing more. Just fear. We just can't wrap our hands around it. So, is it normal? Is it normal to have anger? I think so. I think so predicated on God. I think so predicated on my own life. I think so predicated on watching people drive down the road and the wind blowing your papers off like I was born. In Exodus, it showed that God lost his temper. There's no doubt about it. And no matter what version you read, God lost his temper. Similar to what we hear about Jesus walking into the temple and throwing the table over. I see that as temper, but I see more so the temper of when Jesus walked out to the boat and everything was going crazy and everybody was going, oh! And he goes, what's wrong with you? Don't you have faith? I may be paraphrasing here, but the bottom line is if you don't have faith and you don't believe, your world's going to be tumultuous and you're going to have fear. Fear will rule you. And when you have fear excessively, you're going to have anger. You may call it fear, you may call it anger, but most of the time people are going to see your fear as anger. God showed that anger after 40 nights Moses was up there? 40 nights he was up there. And prior to this, he had told everybody through Moses and through all the other people, he said, don't, just follow what I say. But while he was up there, 40 nights talking to Moses, gave us the 10 simple rules to follow in life. 10 simple rules. God created us. He's thinking 10 simple rules, right? I can define this. So as Moses comes down from the mountain, what's he see? He sees ideology, or idols, false idols, and all this stuff, and he loses his temper. He loses his temper. He lost his temper the same as a parent would lose their temper when they say, I said do this, why can't you clean your room? And the child goes, because I didn't want to. And the parent loses their temper. They didn't make a mistake. God never made a mistake. But he's just like every other parent. You give a child their life. You give a child freedom. And a child is only a child. They're going to do wrong. Sometimes a parent can deal with that, and sometimes a parent has to yell and scream. That day, God had to yell and scream. And thank God that he created Moses as well. Who knows what had happened? I might be skinny. But from that point, I'm rambling a little bit. From a parent's perspective, my dad, he didn't make a mistake. He had some issues. But when I was a kid, we had a 1963 Ford Falcon. And back then, dashboards were made out of molded metal. Actually, not molded metal. It was one chunk stamped. And this guy cut me and my dad off one day. My dad slammed on the brakes and my head slammed into the metal. Bam! Oh, I was like, whoa. And no, Risa, that's not why I'm this way.
Yes, it is. That's what I was thinking.
So, all of a sudden I look over at my dad. All of a sudden he just gets this rage. He wants to go after this person. He's gonna do everything that he can, and he throws the car into low gear, and we come up off the ditch, and we come flying down the road, and I'm going, what is going on? And I look at my dad, and I said, Dad, I'm okay. And my dad looked at me, and all of a sudden the foot came off the gas pedal. The rage dissipated. Was my dad angry? I don't think he was. I think my dad was afraid that this person had either directly or indirectly hurt his son, his baby. That wasn't anger, that was fear. His baby may have been hurt in the car. I move over to